When delay becomes the story. In most constitutional democracies, court cases are judged by their reasoning. In Nigeria today, however, it is increasingly the timing of judgment, not the content, that defines public reaction. The Supreme Court's delay in delivering judgment on the ADC leadership appeal, 6 days after hearing arguments under an accelerated schedule, has triggered more than legal curiosity. It has ignited a political and emotional interpretation. That silence itself may be strategic. That perception has now grown into a broader narrative of state capture, a term suggesting that key institutions may be indirectly shaped to serve political outcomes rather than purely legal ones. Whether or not that interpretation is accurate, the intensity of the reaction reveals something deeper, a shrinking public trust in the neutrality of Nigeria's highest courts. Before we go into the analysis, let us look at the full report. Public outrage has intensified across social media and political spaces over the Supreme Court's delay in delivering judgment in the ADC leadership appeal, 6 days after hearing arguments from all parties on April 22. Many Nigerians are now accusing the Apex Court of deliberately withholding its ruling, allegedly to undermine the opposition's ability to conduct party primaries on time. The delay has fueled claims of state capture of the judiciary, with critics drawing comparisons between the current Chief Justice of Nigeria's handling of the case and his involvement in the controversial 2020 Supreme Court decision that declared Hope Uzodinma governor of Imo State, a ruling widely referred to as the miracle judgment. Although these allegations are largely based on public perception rather than concrete proof of misconduct, they reflect growing concern about the independence of the judiciary at a politically sensitive time. The urgency of the matter is tied to the electoral timetable. Party primaries began on April 23, just a day after the Supreme Court hearing. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has set May 30 as the deadline for completing primaries and resolving related disputes. Each day without a judgment further limits the ADC's ability to organize congresses and meet electoral requirements ahead of the 2027 elections. The Supreme Court had granted an accelerated hearing for the case marked SCCV 180/2026, with compressed filing timelines that signaled urgency. The panel, led by Justice Mohammed Garba, reserved judgment, stating that a date would be communicated later. However, no date has been announced since then. For many observers, the delay appears inconsistent with the urgency previously demonstrated by the court. Some commentators have expressed frustration, questioning why a case fast-tracked through strict deadlines would now be left awaiting judgment without a timeline. The phrase "state capture" has gained traction online, used to describe what critics see as the manipulation or weakening of public institutions in favor of political interest. The argument circulating among critics is that a fragmented opposition benefits the ruling party. According to this view, prolonged delay in the ADC case could effectively cripple its ability to conduct valid primaries, pushing it closer to missing INEC deadlines and weakening its participation in the 2027 elections. From this perspective, the court does not need to issue an adverse ruling. Continued delay alone may achieve the same political outcome. This suspicion has been strengthened by comparisons to the 2020 Supreme Court judgment that overturned earlier rulings and declared Hope Uzodinma governor of Imo State. The decision remains one of the most controversial in Nigeria's judiciary history and continues to shape public trust in the Supreme Court. Legal analysts, however, are divided. Some argue that 6 days is not an unusual time frame for a reserved Supreme Court judgment, especially in complex political cases. Others counter that the accelerated hearing process created expectations of a faster decision. Lawyers point out that the court has, in past election-related matters, delivered judgment within days when necessary, raising questions about why this case appears to be taking longer. Meanwhile, the ADC finds itself in a difficult position. If it waits for the ruling, it risks missing critical electoral deadlines. If it proceeds without legal clarity, its primaries may be challenged or invalidated. The party has already faced complications, including lack of INEC recognition for its recent convention and uncertainty surrounding its leadership structure. The broader opposition coalition also faces uncertainty as the ADC is seen as a key platform for a unified presidential front ahead of 2027. Any disruption to its internal processes would weaken broader opposition plans. Beyond the immediate political implications, the situation has raised deeper concerns about the role of the judiciary in Nigeria's democracy. Public confidence in the courts relies heavily on the perception of neutrality and timely justice. When decisions appear delayed in politically sensitive cases, that confidence can erode. Opposition voices have warned that democratic institutions are gradually being weakened, arguing that such developments do not happen suddenly, but through incremental erosion. For many Nigerians, the solution remains straightforward. The Supreme Court should deliver its judgment without further delay. A clear ruling, regardless of outcome, would provide legal certainty and allow all parties to move forward. Continued silence, critics argue, only deepens suspicion and political tension. As frustration grows, one sentiment continues to echo online: justice delayed is justice denied, and in this case, democracy itself is being delayed. My people, let us analyze this quickly. Is this about one case or institutional trust? The ADC case is becoming symbolic rather than isolated. It is now part of a broader national conversation about 1. Judicial independence, 2. Political influence over institutions, 3. Trust in democratic processes, 4. The role of timing in justice delivery. Even if the court eventually delivers a legally sound judgment, the delay itself may have already shaped public perception. This is the core dilemma. Judicial legitimacy depends not only on correctness, but on confidence in timing and neutrality. Let us look at the real cost. It is not delay, it is interpretation. At its core, the Supreme Court has a simple task: deliver judgment when ready. But in Nigeria's current political climate, when ready becomes indistinguishable from timely, neutrality becomes harder to communicate. The ADC case illustrates a larger reality. Courts do not operate in isolation from politics. Timing is now part of political interpretation. Silence is no longer neutral in public perception. Whether the delay is procedural, administrative, or coincidental, it has already entered the political imagination. And once that happens, the challenge is no longer just to deliver justice, but to preserve confidence that justice is being delivered independently. For now, the situation remains unresolved, but one thing is already clear. In Nigeria's democracy today, a delayed judgment is never just a delayed judgment. It is a narrative event.
It's just angle.